The Detroit Lions are staring at an offseason that could quietly reshape the identity of this franchise. And for the first time in several years, the front office may be forced to let meaningful contributors walk out the door. Success in the NFL always comes with a bill, and Detroit is about to pay it. Extensions for cornerstone players, a tightening salary cap situation, and a roster that has grown deeper and more expensive mean tough decisions are no longer hypothetical. They are here. And when you examine this roster closely, one name emerges as a player the Lions simply cannot afford to lose if they want to keep their defensive foundation intact: Amon-Ra. His 2025 season on paper may not jump off the stat sheet, but context tells a completely different story. Injuries across the secondary forced him into roles he was never supposed to carry full-time, bouncing from slot corner to outside boundary assignments, sometimes functioning as the top corner on the roster depending on who was healthy that week. For any defensive back, consistency in role is everything, and Robertson had none of it. Yet despite the chaos, he remained one of the few stabilizing presences in a secondary that felt like it was held together by tape by December. What makes Robertson so critical is not just his talent, but his versatility within a defense that depends on adaptability. The Lions envisioned a rotation where young corners could grow into defined roles, but injuries to players like Terrion Arnold and DJ Reed shattered that blueprint early. Instead of developing within structure, Robertson became the structure. He covered elite receivers on the outside one week, shifted inside to handle quick slot weapons the next, and did it often with a revolving door of safeties behind him due to injuries at that position as well. The result was a defense constantly adjusting on the fly, yet still leaning on Robertson as the one piece capable of surviving the turbulence. Letting him leave would not just subtract a starting caliber player. It would remove the insurance policy that kept the entire secondary functional when everything else went wrong. If you believe the 2024 version of Robertson is the true indicator of his ceiling, then the Lions have a potential bargain staring them in the face. That season showed a confident, instinctive corner who could disrupt timing routes, tackle reliably in space, and bring a physical edge that fit perfectly with Detroit's defensive mentality. The dip in 2025 looks far more like the product of instability than decline. In free agency, perception often drives price, and if the market undervalues him because of that down year, Detroit has an opportunity to retain a player who could outperform his contract immediately. For a team with championship aspirations, those are the moves that separate contenders from pretenders. At the same time, the Lions' offseason is not just about retaining talent, but preparing for future battles. And that's where the upcoming NFL Combine becomes a fascinating subplot. Even with Jared Goff locked in as the franchise quarterback through 2028, Detroit's leadership understands that scouting is as much about tomorrow's opponents as it is about your own roster. The quarterback class entering the league could define the NFC landscape for the next decade, and the Lions are doing their homework now. Prospects like Fernando Mendoza bring prototypical size and intelligence reminiscent of classic pocket passers, while others such as Ty Simpson represent high-variance upside that could either elevate a franchise or set it back years. Detroit may not be drafting one of these players, but they will almost certainly face them, and preparation begins long before game week. This is where organizational discipline shows itself. The Lions historically keep only 2 quarterbacks on the active roster, signaling confidence in their current structure, yet they still invest time evaluating developmental prospects. It's a reminder that sustained success requires anticipating change rather than reacting to it. Players like Garrett Nussmeier, with his aggressive gunslinger mentality, or dual-threat athletes such as Taylon Green, present entirely different schematic challenges. Defensive coordinators must imagine how their personnel would handle each style, which ties directly back to why retaining a flexible defender like Robertson matters so much. Modern offenses attack matchups relentlessly, and defenses survive by deploying players who can erase mismatches before they become explosive plays. If you're enjoying this deep breakdown of the Lions' offseason strategy and want more film-level analysis on roster decisions that will shape the future of this team, make sure to subscribe right now because we're going to follow every major move Detroit makes from free agency through the draft and explain exactly how it impacts their Super Bowl window. Another layer of uncertainty surrounds the safety position, where injuries transformed what was once a strength into a looming question mark. Brian Branch and Kirby Joseph were supposed to anchor the backend for years, but durability concerns have forced the Lions to explore contingency plans earlier than expected. Joseph's lingering knee issues raise uncomfortable long-term questions, while Branch's torn Achilles introduces the possibility that Detroit could begin the season without either member of its elite duo at full strength. That scenario would have been unthinkable a year ago. Yet in the NFL, depth often determines survival, and unexpectedly, players like Avonte Maddox and Thomas Harper stepped into the void and performed well beyond expectations. Their emergence gives Detroit options, but it also complicates contract decisions as the team weighs whether to invest in proven veterans or gamble on recovering stars. Re-signing Maddox, in particular, feels like a move that aligns with the Lions' philosophy of rewarding performance while maintaining financial flexibility. He transitioned into a safety role and delivered top-tier production despite limited experience at the position, demonstrating the kind of adaptability coaches covet. Harper's development adds another layer of intrigue. As a young player who has already proven capable of starting games, offers cost-controlled stability. Still, relying solely on internal solutions carries risk, especially if Joseph's health remains uncertain. The possibility of drafting a safety early or targeting an affordable veteran in free agency suggests Detroit is preparing for multiple scenarios simultaneously. All of these threads connect back to the same central theme. The Lions are entering a phase where depth and versatility will determine whether their competitive window stays open. Highlight reel plays from stars like Jahmyr Gibbs or explosive moments from Jameson Williams capture headlines. But roster construction is what sustains success. One spectacular touchdown can win a game, yet a well-balanced roster wins seasons. Detroit has built an identity rooted in physicality, resilience, and adaptability, and the decisions made in this offseason will reveal whether that identity can survive the financial realities that come with being a contender. The truth is, teams rarely collapse because of one catastrophic move. They erode when small, seemingly manageable losses accumulate until the foundation weakens. Letting a player like Robertson walk might not dominate national headlines, but inside the building, it could create a ripple effect that exposes vulnerabilities offenses will exploit immediately. In a conference loaded with elite passing attacks, depth at cornerback is not a luxury, it is survival. Detroit's leadership understands this, which is why the coming weeks will test their ability to balance loyalty, evaluation, and long-term planning. As the free agency clock ticks closer, every decision becomes a statement about what this franchise values most. Do they prioritize continuity on defense, ensuring that the system remains intact despite injuries and departures? Do they gamble on youth, trusting that draft picks and developing players can fill the gaps? Or do they take a hybrid approach, retaining key veterans while selectively adding new pieces to keep the roster fresh? However it unfolds, one thing is certain. This offseason will shape the trajectory of the Lions for years to come, and the margin for error is thinner than ever. If you want to stay ahead of every rumor, signing, and draft move as Detroit navigates this pivotal moment, hit subscribe and turn on notifications because this channel is going to break down not just what happens, but why it matters and how it changes the Lions' path toward bringing a championship back to the city.